أخرجه القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الهمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت معدود ولا أجل ممدود أما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يمنون عليك أن أسلموا قل الله يمن عليكم أن هداكم للإيمان قل لا تمنوا علي إسلامكم بل الله يمن عليكم أن هداكم للإيمان إن كنتم صادقين صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات For the love of our beloved Prophet and his beloved progeny, a second loud salawat. For the hastening and the return of our beloved 12th Imam, a third final loud salawat. Allow me to begin tonight's talk by congratulating all of our dear brothers and sisters on this auspicious occasion of the birth of Zainab, the daughter of Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim. Allah salawat. The topic that we'll be discussing tonight, inshallah, is the topic of the differences between the life of a Muslim and a person who is simply a moral individual. And as I get into the topic more, the dynamics and the different implications of the discussion will clarify themselves a little bit more. On a night like this where we want to celebrate the legacy of someone like Lady Zainab, it is important for us to understand what she left behind for us. The legacy of Lady Zainab, that religion that she worked so hard for, that religion that she sacrificed so much for, was none but Islam. And therefore, if we want to honor her legacy, we have to honor what she left behind for us and what she sacrificed for us. Therefore, we have to honor this religion that she worked so hard for and that she sacrificed so much for. And one of the ways in honoring Islam and appreciating Islam is understanding how Islam is a benefit and a blessing in our lives on a day-to-day basis. Most Muslims, of course, look at Islam as a burden in their life. Meaning what? Meaning as they continue in life, they compare themselves with other people within society. Everyone else gets to do whatever they like. They continue to eat whatever they like. They continue to dress however they like. They continue to be able to attend any gathering that they like. But you're a Muslim. This might be crossing our minds. Yes, I'm Muslim. And so there's a burden on my shoulders because I can't just eat anything. I can't just dress in any way that I like to. I can't just attend any gathering that I want to. And so many times I sit back and think to myself, you know, Islam is this big burden in my life. Everyone else has this freedom, but of course I don't have those freedoms. I am somewhat deprived of those freedoms, yes? The reality is most of us look at Islam as a burden, something that we kind of carry with ourselves because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that we have to be Muslim and that we have to obey Him. But in reality, we never take time to appreciate the blessing that the religion of Islam is. In reality, if you understood the blessing that Islam is in my life and in your life that we will discuss tonight, from now on, you don't come across a person who is, let's say for example, an atheist, who is not blessed with Islam. You don't come across him thinking, what a great life does he have, and how much of a burden do I have on my shoulders. you would think to yourself, how great of a life do I have that I have been blessed with Islam? And you might even feel sorry for another person who doesn't have Islam within their lives. Therefore, it's important for us to understand, how is Islam a blessing on a practical level in our everyday life? Yes, during the time of the Prophet, Islam was a blessing for the Arab, for the people of the Prophet. Why? Because Islam took them from a group of people who were nobodies, they were living in the middle of the desert, took them and turned them into an empire that the history books still speak of up until today. Islam took the Arab of the time of the Prophet, brought them together, united them under one flag, all of these different tribes, turned them into an educated group of people, turned them into a powerful group of people, turned them into what historians refer to as the Islamic Golden Age, or the Golden Islamic Era. This is what Islam did for the Muslims. But that, of course, was 1400 years ago, maybe 1000 years ago, so on and so forth. Is Islam a blessing in our lives today in the 21st century? That is the question that we want to answer tonight. In other words, if I came across an atheist and this person does not have Islam in his life, what blessings is he deprived of that I have in my life because I am blessed with the religion of Islam? And we want to get into this topic at a very practical level. Someone might say, well, in the akhirah, you'll have certain blessings and so on and so forth. The akhirah is the akhirah. We're talking about right here. We're talking about right here. In this world, what type of impact does Islam have on my life on a day-to-day basis that an atheist or someone who doesn't have faith in their life is deprived of? That is the topic that we'll be delving tonight, inshallah. And in order to do so, I'll pose the following questions. Number one, how was Islam a blessing for the people of the time of the Prophet? Let us open that up a little bit more. Number two, why was it that Arabia, the place where our Prophet originated from, where he emerged from, why was it that none of the other major empires in the world ever bothered to conquer Arabia? What was wrong with Arabia anyways? And how does this prove that the message of the Prophet and the Quran was in fact a miracle from God? Number three, how is Islam a blessing in our lives today in the 21st century? Number four, does Islam only offer to us akhlaqi teachings and moral teachings that human beings universally agree on? Or are the teachings of Islam more than just the basic moral akhlaqi teachings that we all understand? Number five, what are the practical differences between your life and the life of a person who doesn't have faith in his life? Even if that person is a moral individual, he has good akhlaq, what are you blessed with because of your faith that he is deprived of? And number six, and finally, if someone doesn't have religion and faith within his life, can he come up with a moral framework as to what is good and what is bad, and how one is supposed to live his life? Tonight, inshallah, we'll delve into these 6 questions with Allah salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. The reality is, most of us look at Islam as a burden. I'm living my life, except everyone else around me gets to do whatever they like to do. I'm a Muslim, so I can't eat this meat, I can't eat this sandwich. My friends are consuming whatever they like to consume, yes? I can't go to this gathering is haram for me. I can't dress like this, dressing like this is haram for me. I can't drink, and so on and so forth. Other people get to do whatever they want to do. From our perspective, Islam is simply a set and rules of restrictions that have restricted my life. I never take the time to ever understand, is Islam a blessing in my life as well? Is Islam something that enables me to do a number of things that other people are deprived of? The Quran, however, is very clear about something. That thing that the Quran is very clear about is that with all of these restrictions that we have in Islam, no doubt, at the end of the day, you owe God because of Islam, and Islam doesn't owe you. This is a difficult truth to swallow, a difficult pill to swallow, yes? The Quran is very clear. Why? Because people used to come to the Prophet, and they used to come to the Prophet, they say, Ya Rasulullah, before we didn't believe in you. Now we believed in you. We went out of our way, we proclaimed our faith in you, we believe in you now. So now what are you going to do for us? The Quran talks about this in Surah Al-Hujurat. يَمُنُّونَ عَلَيْكَ أَنْ أَسْلَمُوا. They come to you and they place minnat upon you. Minnat is when you remind someone the favor that you had done for them. So when you remind that person of the favor, what does that mean? That means that person owes you. Now that person has to make it up to you. Now he has to do a favor for you. So the Quran says, people used to come to the Prophet, يَمُنُّونَ عَلَيْكَ أَنْ أَسْلَمُوا. Ya Rasulullah, they come to you, they say, oh, what are you going to do now for us? Because you owe us now, because we believed in you when no one else was believing in you. So what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds, He says, قُلْ لَا تَمُنُّوا عَلَيَّ إِسْلَامَكُمْ. O Messenger of God, go and tell them they can't place minnat upon you for believing in you. بَلِ اللَّهُ يَمُنُّ عَلَيْكُمْ. Actually, you owe God because He guided you to this path. So the Quran is very clear about one thing. This religion, though it has restrictions, at the end of the day, you're benefiting from it a lot more than it is a burden for you. This is very important. Islam says you owe God because of this faith. Meaning what? Meaning I'm more of a blessing for you than I am a burden for you. Now, of course, Islam has restrictions. There's no doubt about that. But Islam is making the claim, with all of these restrictions, I am still a means of a blessing for you. Okay, this is a big claim. It's not that easy. So if Islam is a blessing for me, how was Islam a blessing for the people of the time of the Prophet? Well, for the time of the Prophet, it's very clear how Islam was a blessing. Because this was a group of people who had a million fights with each other. Every tribe living their own life. Completely disunited. They had no culture. They had no positive customs. Very, very limited. Yes? What did Islam do? Islam took this group of people, united them all under one banner, under one flag, and then turned them into an empire that became one of the greatest empires that the world had ever seen. This is what Islam did for them. In fact, they came from an area that was so bad of an area that none of the empires during the time of the Prophet even tried to conquer Arabia. It was such a terrible area. It was so empty of natural resources. Yes, the oil came later, of course, yes. It was so empty of natural resources that the Roman Empire, to their left, to their west, and the Persian Empire, to the east, neither of them even made an attempt to come and conquer Arabia. Why? These empires, they were eating up land all over the place, yes? Why is it when it came to Arabia, they just left it? Because it was such an area that was empty of natural resources. It's deserts, it's Bedouins, people living in tents. Why do we even want this land? Yes? It was so empty when the Prophet came to the Kuffar and they said, well, Muhammad, if you want us to listen to you, you have to bring up to us a miracle. Recite salawat, please. It was so empty, the miracle that they asked for was a spring of water. That was their miracle. Because you know what their thinking was? They were trying to trick the Prophet. Their thinking was, we'll ask this messenger, they knew he was a messenger, we'll ask this messenger to bring out a spring of water in Mecca and gardens. These are the things that they lacked. Yes, these are the things they didn't have. They said, we'll tell him to do this. He's a messenger of God, so he's actually going to do it. But when he does it, we're not going to believe in him anyways. But guess what? We'll walk away with the spring of water. We will walk away with gardens that are flourishing. We'll walk away with the thing that we lack the most in Mecca. What is what? Natural resources. That's what they lack the most. That's why when the Prophet came, he said, what miracles do you want? These were some of the miracles that they pointed out. وَقَالُوا لَن نُؤْمِنَ لَكَ حَتَّى تَفْجُرَ لَنَا مِنَ الْأَرْضِ يَنْبُوعًا. Make a spring of water appear. Why? Because water in that land was like gold if you got your hands on water. This was the land the Prophet came from. A land where people used to drink polluted water. A land where people used to eat reptiles as their lunch. That's the first Imam, Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. He speaks of this in his khutbahs. He reminds the Muslims who later on are turning into an empire. He says, remember those days when the Prophet came and you all were drinking polluted water and you used to eat lizards as part of your daily meals. So this is who the Prophet came to. Yes? And side point here, this is part of the reason why the Quran is such a big miracle, by the way. Because at that time, when the Quran came into the picture, it's not that there weren't major civilizations and empires. It's not that there weren't scholars. It's not that there weren't intellectuals. It's that the Quran came from an area that didn't have any of these. The Roman Empire was there. The civilization was there. The Persian Empire was there. The civilization was there. The Quran came out of neither of these. The Quran came out of the middle of the deserts. The Quran came from a person who was unschooled. His family was living amongst tents. The closest the Arab of that time were to civilization were the basic customs that they had and that connection that they had with the Kaaba. That's what made them special. That's what they stood out for. Yes? Other than that, what else did they have? They had nothing. Couldn't that Quran have come out the Roman civilization? Yes? Couldn't have the Quran come out the Persian Empire? It could have. It didn't. It came from the middle of the desert where there are no schools to point to, where this man could have gone and learned and so on and so forth. Yes? This is where they started. They got to a point where for 500 years, they were the leading group when it came to science and knowledge, which historians refer to as the Islamic Golden Age. Okay, all of this is great and wonderful, except this is almost 1,000 years ago. So now the question is, Islam was a blessing for them. How is Islam a blessing for my life today? This is the point that we want to get into now. Because I'm living in the 21st century. Yes, Islam had an empire, great. What is that good for me? Now I want to see how Islam is a benefit and a blessing for my life today. Let us begin to get into this. Many times, when we want to point to how Islam is a blessing for our lives today, there is a major mistake that usually parents make, by the way. Yes? A major mistake. If your friend comes to you and says, oh, you're Muslim, so what does that mean? How does Islam impact your life? The average Muslim will come up with a list of 5 to 6 akhlaqi teachings, moral teachings. Oh, I am Muslim, so that means I have to be kind to other people. I am Muslim, so that means I have to give charity. I am Muslim, that means I cannot lie. That I am Muslim, that means I can't cheat the other person on the other side of the transaction. All of these are true. But Islam didn't come just to say these things. It is a big injustice to Islam to say Islam only came to teach you basic moral teachings. These moral teachings, everyone on earth understands them. You go anywhere on earth, say, is it good to lie? They'll tell you, no, it's not good to lie. You go anywhere on earth, you say, is it good to cheat other people in a transaction? They'll say, no, it's not good to do that. These are moral teachings that everybody understands. Islam didn't come just to teach these basic moral teachings. And this is how our parents introduce Islam to their children, by the way. Why are we Muslim, Baba? We're Muslim. That means you have to be kind. That means you have to be nice. That means, you have to say the truth. You have to tell the truth. These are all part of Islam. They are big parts of Islam, but they are not all of Islam. Islam came to also say some other things as well. Otherwise, if Islam had come just to say these things, did you really need a whole religion? Did you really need God to send a messenger just to say, be kind, be nice? If you're an atheist, you understand this. Isn't it true you come across atheists who have better akhlaq sometimes than you and I? Isn't it true sometimes you come across atheists who are more fair in their transactions than you and I? This is the reality of the matter. Therefore, Islam came with more than just the basic moral teachings. What else did Islam come with? Islam also came with a belief system, aqaid, and then it also came with day-to-day rulings that you have to follow. These three together, the aqaid, the akhlaq, and the day-to-day system is what builds Islam, not just one of them. When you say, oh, Islam means be nice to other people, you are doing the biggest injustice to Islam. You know why? Because now Islam is replaceable for your child. Well, because his Christian friend is also nice. Jewish friend is also nice. Actually, there's another friend, doesn't even know what religion he follows. He's also nice. So what's the value of Islam anymore anyways? Everyone's nice. Everyone's kind. Everyone understands this. That's not the only thing that Islam came to tell us. This was a portion of it. So if we understand these three levels to what Islam came to tell us. Now the question is, how does Islam impact my life positively on a day-to-day basis? 4 elements, inshallah, we're going to go through. Allah salawat. The first of those, number 1, you as a Muslim, because you have Islam in your life, you know that as crazy as things get in this world, there is a purpose behind life. You know, if you didn't have that in your life, you know how easy it is to go insane when you look at the world around you? With all the darknesses that happen and all the injustices that happen and all the oppression that's happening in Palestine and other places, yes? At the end of the day, you know that there's someone who's running this show. Now, you of course might sit there and say, if I was the one running the show, I would have run the show differently, yes? You might sit there and say, well, I wouldn't have been allowing innocent people this happening to them and so on and so forth. God has His own wisdom, He has His own way of doing things, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, because you have faith in your life, it positively impacts your life right here. I'm not talking about akhirah yet. Akhirah separates. Akhirah not even comparable, yes? Right here, the first benefit that you have, particularly as a Muslim even more, is that you know there is a purpose to life. You know, as bad as things get, there is someone who is watching. There is someone who is running this show. In Surah Fatiha, what do you say? You say, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Praise belongs to the one who nurtures everyone in this world. Meaning he is alongside everything that's taking place in this world. He didn't just create this world and then throw it to the side. He is engaged and involved in everything that happens in this world. Okay, Bismillah. This atheist that you said he gets to eat the McDonald's sandwich and so on and so forth. Yes, the McRibs or whatever it is. I don't know what it is. Yes? And this atheist that you said he can attend any gathering and you were bummed out about that and all this kind of stuff. This atheist you said you can dress however he wants to dress, he doesn't have to worry about. All these restrictions he doesn't have to worry about. Go and ask him, what is the purpose of life? What's the meaning behind all of this? He doesn't have an answer to that. What's the purpose? You know, there's 4 individuals that are referred to as the 4 horsemen. Yes? The 4 horsemen has certain biblical references, but they call themselves the 4 horsemen because they're 4 atheists. They put together this title for themselves. They're kind of the flag bearers of the newest movement of atheism. Yes? One of them is Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, and a couple others. I'm forgetting some of their names. Yes? You ask them, what's the purpose of life? One of them said the purpose of life is for you to explore and see what are the things that you enjoy in this life. What a meaningless life that is. What a useless life that is. So you're telling me the purpose of life was that I go find a hobby, start painting, and then I realize, I like painting, this is so fun. What a useless life. And what a painful life, because life is not all nice and dandy. Life is difficult. Life is tough. So, but if I know there's a purpose behind things, it's that much easier for me to cope with the difficulties of this world. Go, if you think Islam is a burden for you more than a blessing, go ahead and take a look at studies that are done between depression, mental health issues, and a sense of a lack of purpose in somebody's life. You will find a direct correlation. You are blessed with Islam to have a sense of purpose in your life. This is the first of those benefits. Allah salawat, please. Number 1. Number 2, you as a believer are blessed with this idea that you know what's going to happen to you after you die. This is a question every human being wonders about. Every human being is wondering, what's going to happen to me when I die? Now, on a day-to-day basis, a lot of people don't think about this because they're busy with life, yes? When they lose a loved one, then they sit back and say, wait a second, what happens? What's out there? What happens to me after all of this is said and done? Yes? Well, if you don't have Islam in your life, if you're not blessed with Islam, well, guess what? You have no idea. It's frightening. Am I going to be in pain? Am I going to be happy? Am I going to be in a coma? Am I going to be like I'm asleep? What's going to happen to me? But as a Muslim, even more so as a Shia, you know exactly what's going to happen when you leave this world, yes? You want to see how much of a blessing this is? I'll share this story with you, yes? I got a call, maybe this was right, I think at the beginning of COVID and all of this kind of stuff, 2020, 2021, a couple years ago, yes? Got a call from a community. They said, Shaikh, we want you to do a majlis tarheem, yes? Someone has passed away. We want to hold a majlis in their name and so on and so forth. So this part is normal, this happens and so on and so forth. So I asked them, I said, this person who's passed away, how old was he or she? They said, oh, this person, 10 years old. Yes, 10 years old. 10 years old. I was in shock. Yes, because that's not the number that you would expect, right? So then later on, the father was going through a really rough time. He was a young boy. So I spoke with the father, yes? And I still remember what he said. The father very clearly told me, I was talking to him, and I was trying to comfort him because obviously you go through something like this, it's, mind-boggling how difficult it is. As we were speaking to one another, he said, you know what it is, Shaykh, that makes it the most difficult? I said, what? Because I had already told him that a 10-year-old is definitely in a good place, yes? You and I, we have our deeds and we have to be accounted for and all this kind of stuff, separate discussion. A child, definitely in an amazing place, yes? If not heaven, something like heaven. Okay. So I was comforting him. He said, you know what pains me and makes it most difficult for me, Shaykh? I said, what? He said, what makes it the most difficult for me is that I'm not there to take care of him the way I was there to take care of him for the past 10 years. For the past 10 years, anything that would happen to him, I was there to take care of him, yes? But now I'm not there to take care of him. And this sense of not knowing what's happening with him and what's going on with him, this is what's really making it difficult, yes? So I shared the following narration, of which we have multiple in Al-Kafi, which is the most important compilation of hadith within our school of thought. And the narration speaks of the final moments of someone leaving this world. I want to share this narration with you. This is Imam, Al-Imam Al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. He was asked, هل يكره المؤمن على قبض روحه? Is it true that a believer sometimes is forcefully, his soul is forcefully taken from him? He doesn't want to die, but they take the soul forcefully. Is this true or not? The Imam said, La wallah. No, it's not true. A believer only dies if he wants to die. A believer dies only if he wants to die. So what if I want to live for 100 years, 200 years? No one's going to come take my soul? The Imam said, La wallah. No one is forcefully taken. A believer. Disbeliever, forcefully taken. Yes? Believer, so not forcefully is not taken. So the narrator, of course, is confused, like you and I are confused right now. What do you mean he's not forcefully taken? So the Imam started to explain. He said, you know what happens? إِنَّهُ إِذَا أَتَاهُ مَلَكُ الْمَوْتِ When the angel of death comes to him, لِقَبْضِ رُوحِهِ to come and take his soul, initially, جَزِعَ عِنْدَ ذَلِكِ He's a little bothered by that. Yes? Because at the end of the day, he's leaving this world, going to the next world, an unknown world, جَزِعَ. Jazia means when you're uncomfortable, yes? And you make that known. Jazia in the thought. So when he starts to become uncomfortable, who comforts him? Malikul Maut himself comforts him. فَيَقُولُ لَهُ مَلَكُ الْمَوْتِ So Malikul Maut speaks to this person who's leaving this world now. فَيَقُولُ لَهُ مَلَكُ الْمَوْتِ يَا وَلِيَّ اللَّهِ لَا تَجْزَعْ O friend of Allah, you have nothing to worry about. You can calm down. This is going to be a comfortable process for you. Ya wali Allah, la tajza' فَوَالَّذِي بَعَثَ مُحَمَّدًا Because I swear by the one who sent Muhammad as his messenger. لَأَنَا I swear that I will be لَأَنَا أَبَرُّ بِكَ وَأَشْفَقُ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ وَالِدٍ رَحِيمٍ I'm going to be kinder to you than your own parents. I will be kinder to you than those who took care of you when you were a helpless child. Min walidin rahim. Iftah aynayka fandur. Open your eyes and look. قال, so the Imam said, when he opens his eyes and he looks, وَيُمَثَّلُ لَهُ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ وَأَمِيرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَفَاطِمَةُ وَالْحَسَنُ وَالْحُسَيْنُ وَالْأَئِمَّةُ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِهِمْ صَلَوَاتُ. He opens his eyes, وَيُمَثَّلُ لَهُ, meaning it becomes present in front of him, in front of his eyes. Who? These individuals. All of the ma'sumin are present in front of him. So the angel turns to him and he says, Hada Rasulullah, this is the messenger of Allah. وَرُفَقَاؤُكَ, and the people you're going to be acquainted with. So then he turns to him and he says, do you want to leave or do you want to stay? Do you want to go yourself? Or would you leave this family and stay in this world, in this realm? So the Imam says, فَمَا مِن شَيْءٍ أَحَبُّ إِلَيْهِ, there's nothing more beloved in his eyes in those moments than giving up his soul and joining them. Yes? You are blessed with this viewpoint because you have Islam in your life. But a person who doesn't have Islam in his life, what is he going to happen? What is he going to say happens to us when we die? You can deny everything you want. No one can deny death. So what happens to us when we die? They asked Christopher Hitchens, another one of the four horsemen, yes? They said, listen, you're an atheist. So if you were at the deathbed of someone and he's ill, he's leaving this world, you're holding his hands. And he turns to you for comfort. What would you say to him in those moments? And he smiled. This is interviews online. He smiled. He said, I probably shouldn't be the one holding his hands in those moments. Why? Because I have nothing to tell him. Don't worry, you're going to go in a coma you're never going to wake up from. But you're blessed with Islam. You know what awaits you, yes? This is number 2. Allah salawat, please. Number 3 of those blessings that Islam brings to us in this world is that you always know whatever effort you put in, whatever sacrifices you make, it never goes unseen. There's someone keeping count. When there is injustices that happen, you know there's someone keeping count. Look at Palestine. Yes, look at these children, their parents, their families. Yes, things that, I told in the Friday khutbah the other day I was speaking, I said, I don't think I've cried this much my whole life as much as I've cried this month. This past month or so that's passed. Because the things you see is just unbelievable. Yes? How can someone stay sane with all of this? One of those ways to stay sane is what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I'm watching. Every injustice that happens, I'm watching. Every sacrifice that happens, I'm watching. This is why Luqman told his son, he said, son, let me tell you something. إِنَّهَا إِن تَكُ مِثْقَالَ حَبَّةٍ مِّن خَرْدَلٍ. If it was the size of the mustard seed, as a little seed, yes? فَتَكُنْ فِي صَخْرَةٍ. If it's in the middle of nowhere, under some rock. أَوْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ أَوْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Or somewhere in the heavens of the earth, this good deed of yours, or this bad deed of yours, يَأْتِ بِهَا اللَّهُ. God will bring it for you on the day of judgment. But you can only say that if you are blessed with faith. If you're not blessed with faith, I sacrificed for my spouse, so who cares? If the spouse appreciates, she'll appreciate. If she doesn't appreciate, she won't appreciate. He won't appreciate. Doesn't matter. I sacrificed for my children. Okay, and then what happened? Nothing. My children grew up, they left, they don't even care about me anymore. So what happened to all of your sacrifices? Well, if you don't have faith in your life, all of your sacrifices just disappear. Nobody cares. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you're blessed with Islam, you know someone is keeping count of every sacrifice of yours, even when no one else appreciates it. When he comes home, yes, and he takes his bag and puts it in the place that you told him already 50 times, you're not supposed to put it there. And you're angry and you want to yell at him, but because it's your family, you're going to hold back and you're going to compromise and you're going to be patient. And say, well, he just got home, so I'm not going to say anything to him right now. Does anyone come forward and give you an award of patience? Does anyone come forward and say, mashallah, we have here a wife. She's extremely patient. She should win an award. No, nobody in the world cares. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching your sacrifice. When that child is crying in the middle of the night, and you have to wake up from your sweet sleep, and go and take care of him or her, that sometimes the child even won't appreciate in the future. Who's keeping count of these things? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is keeping count of these things, but only if you're blessed with faith. If you're not blessed with faith, don't speak of, I made this sacrifice and that sacrifice. If people appreciate it, great. If they don't, it's as if you never made it. That's how this world works. It's a world of matter, material. Doesn't count. If someone wasn't filming it and it doesn't go viral, it's as if you never even did it to begin with. Yes? This is number 3. Brings me to number 4 and the final point that we'll make, inshallah, and we'll wrap up. The 4th of those is that you as a Muslim always know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with you during difficult times. If you don't believe in faith, there's nobody with you. You're alone. It's a very lonely world. Every single one of us at one point or another is going to be at a point in our life where everyone leaves us, either intentionally or sometimes even unintentionally. They may not be around, they can't do anything for you, so on and so forth. This happens in life. You might be in the bed late at night, you're ill, you're sick, everyone else is asleep. And it's just you. But if you're blessed with faith, it's you and your God. It's you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know there's someone there with you at all times. And this is why our Prophet told Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi salamu alayhi. He said, Ya Ali, aninul marid tasbihum. When the ill person is in the bed and he is weeping, I am writing down tasbih for him. He is worshipping me. What does that mean? That means I'm right there with him. I see him. And then he continued. He said, وَسِيَاحُهُ تَهْلِيلٌ. When he cries out of pain, you know sometimes the pain is so sharp, it's so heavy, you cry out of pain. He said, وَسِيَاحُهُ. When he shouts out of pain, I write down tahleel. He said, La ilaha illallah. Then he continued, he said, وَنَوْمُهُ عَلَى الْفِرَاشِ عِبَادَةٌ. When this guy is ill and he's trying to get some sleep to rest, I wrote down for him ibadah. Now where is everyone else? Everyone else is after their own lives. Everyone else is minding their own business. In the middle of the night, nobody cares. But you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there with you. He continued. He said, وَتَقَلُّبُهُ جَنْبًا إِلَى جَنْبٍ. When this guy flips from one side to the other side. When you get sick, sometimes this happens, yeah? You can barely get your sleep, yes? You flip from one side to another side. So when he flips from one side to another side, I write down for him the thawab كَأَنَّمَا يُجَاهِدُ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. It's as if he's struggling in the path of Allah. He's fighting in the path of Allah. This guy's ill in his bed. All of this only if you are blessed with the blessing that is Islam. If you're not blessed with that blessing, it's a very lonely world to live in. And these are the benefits of Islam only as it relates to this world. We haven't even gotten started on what happens in the next world, yes? This is all benefits only as it relates to this world. Your aqaid and your belief system impacts your life here. Forget about the next world. It impacts your life here. Moving beyond that, your day-to-day rulings that you have in Islam also heavily impact your life. Why? Because everyone knows that charity is a good thing. Everyone knows modesty is a good thing. Yes? Everyone knows having the back of your relatives and so on and so forth is a good thing. What people don't know, what people dispute, is to what extent and in what way. This is the blessing that Islam brought to you and I. Islam came to you and I to tell us how to implement these things in our lives. So he said, charity, this is how much. Modesty in this particular way. Dealing with your relatives in this particular way. Dealing with your parents in this particular way. You wouldn't have this if Islam was just some moral teachings. If Islam just said, yes, your parents are very important and that's it. But how? To what extent? What if my parents are doing wrong things? What if they're doing right things? What if they're asking me something that doesn't make sense to me? Well, Islam has answers to all of these questions. But only if you are blessed with Islam. And therefore you find one of the biggest objections to these four horsemen and atheists. In general, atheism in general is this, that if you don't have faith in your life, you cannot come up with a system of good and bad in your day-to-day life. You cannot come up with a moral framework that you can implement into your life. Yes, you can speak in terms of general concepts. But can you tell people how to live their life? You can't tell people how to live their life. You can't say this is good, but from this point onwards it's not good anymore. That's why Sam Harris, another of these four horsemen, it's the third one, he wrote a book. It's called The Moral Landscape. And he made the claim that science can tell us how to live our lives. And of course the book was a major flop. Inshallah, we don't have time to go into the logic that was. But you see, only with Islam do you have this blessing. Everyone will tell you it's good for you to have a moment to remind yourself of God. But Islam will tell you how you're supposed to do that 5 times a day. Everyone will tell you it's good to think about the poor. But then Islam will say 30 days in the month of Ramadan, I need you to fast in this way to this way so that you can implement this into your day-to-day lives. Now all of this only if you are blessed with the blessing that is Islam. And this is why the legacy of individuals like Lady Zainab is so critical and so important for us, because she went through those sacrifices in order to have this religion and this faith, and all of these blessings make its way into our lives. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that with our actions, with our akhlaq, with our beliefs, we make Lady Zainab and all of the Ahlul Bayt proud of us, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of those who are in difficulty and in pain all around the world, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes their difficulty and pain, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of those who are ill, all of those who are dealing with sickness, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants them health and afiyah, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of the oppressors of the world, all the tyrants of the world, what we're witnessing during these days, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He ruins their plans and that He has them taste the fire of hellfire sooner, inshallah. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, finally, last but not least, that He brings forth and hastens the return of the man who will bring peace and justice to this world, our beloved 12th Imam, bin-Nabi wa alih, rahimallahu man qara'a surat al-Fatiha, ma'a as-salawati ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
Inshallah, we'll conclude with the ziyarat of Lady Zainab.